Year 9, Year 10, Year 11, welcome to some help for the AQA Paper 2 English Language Question 5. It's an essential question because it's worth half of the paper. This video might be lengthy, but it's going to take you through how to get a 7, 8 or 9. I've got example paragraphs that I've written for previous questions and example questions. I've also got quick wins, so things you can do to ensure that you are impressing the examiner in terms of your writing. Apologies for the quality of my videos. I'm not brilliant with technology, but please stay with me. My example paragraphs are at the end of the video. I'm going to take you through how to answer some quick wins, as I say, and then what the grade 7, 8 and 9 will look like. I do think this will be a very good video, so please stay with me. Remember that on this question, you have to use the correct format and the correct layout. So if they are asking for a letter, then naturally it has to be set out as a letter. A letter has the address on the right-hand side, and then obviously you, dear such and such. If it's a speech, hello listeners might be something you do. If it's a newspaper article or a magazine article, it would have a title, etc. You must follow the correct format and layout. And same as that, you need to address the appropriate audience. Now, sometimes AQA put things on like write a newspaper article for a broadsheet. Now, a broadsheet means that your audience and your demographic are tend to be wealthier people. Therefore, you should show that in your language, in the fact that it should be standard English throughout. I always tell my students to avoid rewording the question in the opening sentence. So, for instance, if they've said, write a newspaper article or write a letter about the dangers of social media, and then you put, I am writing to inform you about the dangers of social media, then it's a waste of your time, and actually it's pointless because the examiner knows what the question is. You really need to grip the reader as soon as you start writing. So really, honestly, avoid doing that. I would never, ever do it. So I'm going to show you, as I say, some ways of starting in a moment. If we are aiming high, I would always consider an extended metaphor. If you open with a metaphor and you either bring it back in at the end of your piece, then structurally you've got a link. And if you can mention it throughout or reference it throughout, then you've got this embedded extended metaphor, which is a higher skill. And chances are, if it's a decent metaphor, it will grip the reader or the listener. And as I say to my students, do not waffle. If you are going entire paragraphs with no manipulation of sentences, no decent vocabulary, no range of punctuation, no language devices, then I would argue that the chances are your writing will come across as boring and the examiner won't have much to give you in terms of marks. So try to include manipulation of paragraph and manipulation of punctuation. Where can you include your language devices, to really form a solid paragraph? I'm going to go through some quick wins now. So things that I encourage my students to include. The word imagine is very, very powerful. You can use it in many ways. You can use it as a single word sentence. So you might just put imagine, and there is structural manipulation. You could use it as an imperative, demanding the reader to imagine something. Imagine a country without the NHS. And you can use it before something descriptive, usually emotive. Okay? So consider that word. I think it's a very powerful word. The triple abstract nouns and colon. So you put 3 abstract nouns together, you put it with commas, as the example shows, you put a colon and then you put your sentence. So example, expression, individuality, freedom. It seems as a society we have forgotten the meaning of these words. And again, look at that. You are manipulating your punctuation. You are manipulating how your sentence is written. And if you can use mature vocab, then you are winning. Next one. Triple adjective with a dash and a question. Cold, dark, airlessness, dash, which would kill the spaceman first. Now, this is Alan Peat does this in his exciting sentences. So again, look, you are manipulating the reader or the listener with the dash. You've also got a question, and you've started with 3 adjectives. So again, consider that as a quick win and also as a way to start. 2 adjectives. Ominous and harrowing, comma, the ebony night seemed to envelope the entire skyline. You can easily use that to describe whatever it is, or to create something emotive. Fronted adverbial simple. You'll be taught that all the way through school. Anyway, unfortunately, the government has let homelessness become an incurable epidemic. Straightforward. Verb beginning. Considering there has been a staggering rise in mental health issues this year, it is time we asked our leaders what they are doing. So again, something just simple in terms of varying sentence beginnings. Right, I try and get my students, when they often say, I've run out of ideas, to compare our country to others. Now, I've put an example here. Obviously, you're just making it up. In Sweden alone, they begin school much later, at the age of 6. Comparatively, they academically outperform the United Kingdom in every subject offered. So bring in comparisons to other countries when you are arguing something, or when you are telling us about a particular issue like homework or like social media. And again, it adds more content to what you're writing, and it shows, it appears that you've researched something, but naturally, obviously, we haven't, making it up. I always tell mine as well, bring in a documentary. So I always try to get mine to bring in Panorama. So there's an example. BBC One recently aired an episode of Panorama which focused on the detrimental impact social media is having on our young people. They discovered that 3 and 4 teens aged between 13 to 17 have been targeted online, have been bullied online, have faced discrimination online. So if you add in your comparison of a country and your documentary in, you really should have 2 paragraphs there of decent content, something that supports what you are saying. And obviously in there I've just included a statistic and a subtle triple. Right, again, a quick win for my students. My students who say, I don't know how to start, and obviously I'm telling them, you do not reword the question. So, have a solid reason for writing the piece and begin with that. So instead of just thinking, I'm writing an exam response, actually have a reason as to why you have written the letter, the article, or the speech. So has there been something in the news recently? Have one of your students recently suffered something? Has something happened to you directly? Has something happened in your school? So I've just put a couple of examples that you might start the piece with. As you are aware, we recently lost a beloved Year 10 student to the web of drink and drugs. So they were straight in. We are writing this piece because we have lost a student of our own because of drink and drugs. Okay? Or take the statement you're given. Make sure it's a powerful, influential person that said it. The leader of our country recently claimed, and then whatever it is, the NHS is useless or whatnot. And then again, you've got a reason to be writing what you're writing. Or shocking statistics have been published by watchdogs stating, you've got your subtle alliteration there and shocking statistic, and then it's going to be a fact. And again, it's a reason for the article to be written, statistics. And then, as I mentioned earlier, single word, freedom, a single word, a powerful noun, something Nelson Mandela fought his life to have. So if you're given a topic with key vocab in it, then why not use them to start the piece? Okay. Quick wins, 1-word sentence, as I've mentioned. Quick wins, the call on to emphasise something. For example, nurses are facing extinction as more and more quit the profession. : it is time for change. You are emphasising that we have to change something. Remember as well, when you're doing the colon, that the sentence, that the bit before the colon should be a sentence. If struggling, try this. There is only one word we can use to describe the current teacher shortage: : bleak. Look again, punctuation, manipulation of the reader and listener. Another quick win, I'm not a fan of rhetorical question, so answer the question you ask. Actually answer it. Example, so I ask you, Prime Minister, are you doing enough to stabilise our economy? I would argue not. And then again, you've got that manipulation. Instead of just having a boring, bland rhetorical question, no offence, that every grade 4 in England is going to use, we've actually answered it. And we've stated our opinion very subtly there as well. The brackets or the dash in place of a comma. So again, I've put 2 examples there. Donald Trump, brackets, who was recently reinstated as president, brackets, faces more speculation about his behaviour regarding Cuba. Or the NHS dash, which is the spine of our beloved country dash, finds itself at breaking point due to staff shortages. So again, just very subtle manipulation of the punctuation there. You're not doing anything fancy. It just replaces the comma. So do that. And then again, the examiner's going to be loving the fact that you are using a wide range of punctuation. Okay, here are my example paragraphs. I've picked up a few topics. Okay, so topic 1 is social media. Let's imagine that this is the question. Social media has a harmful effect on our body image, particularly for young people. All they are exposed to are perfect figures that aren't actually real. Write a post for an online blog about life as a young person today, in which you explain your point of view on this statement. So if you can see, we need to mention harmful effect, body image. It's a blog, and we're explaining our viewpoint. Okay, so here is my example. All right, I've started hashtag, selfie, like, rate, follow, share. Okay, so again, it's all vocabulary associated with the given topic. A lexical field foreign to older generations, but is now the identity of younger people. Social media is a hydra of dangers and complexities, none of which naive adolescents are aware of. Naturally, I exaggerate when I use the Greek myths reference, but then is it really that much of a stretch? I think not. Take, for example, the infamous airbrushing. It is a web of delusion, masking insecurity. Unfortunately, girls today find these images appealing, desirable, and worst of all, inspiring. Not only do they encourage unhealthy behaviours, but they also create a culture of self-doubt and uncertainty. Social media has bred its very own disease, and as of yet, we do not have a cure. So you can see, okay, and I'm just going to point these things out. The title there, all single words related to the given topic. A lexical field foreign to older generations. Think about that they don't understand this vocabulary. Then you've got your first metaphor. Social media is a hydra. Okay, so the hydra in Greek myth has many heads, and when you chop one off, it grows more. Okay, we've got our semicolon. We've got the fronted adverbial. We've actually answered a question there as well, like I said. Now, here is your next metaphor, web of delusion, masking insecurity. Your next very subtle adverb, fronted adverbial, unfortunately. Your subtle triple, appealing, desirable, inspiring. And then again, social media has bred its very own disease, personification. Okay, so look at that. The examiner is going to be giving us a lot of marks there. Moving on to the next one. Take a screenshot if you need, guys. The next one is prisoner's punishment. So imagine this is the question. Prisoner's a waste of time. It's now become a home from home to prisoners rather than a true punishment. Write an article for a broadsheet newspaper explaining your views on this statement. Okay. So again, we need a title because it is an article. Okay, so I've put prison, friend or foe, personification, question, alliteration, all in the title. And I've done this. Home. There's your single word I mentioned. A noun synonymous with safety, love and protection. Arguably a juxtaposition to the noun prison. However, our country was recently outraged when the Prime Minister herself claimed prison is a waste of time. It's now become a home from home to prisoners rather than a true punishment. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the leader of our people, our children, our future. So again, as I mentioned, your title, your single word, your subtle triple, safety, love, protection, fronted adverbial, an explanation that noun and prison are juxtapositions, simple connective, bringing in the Prime Minister who I've said made this statement, and then your triple again, our people, our children, our future, and you've got that emotive repetition of our. So I'm not doing anything over the top here, but it definitely is getting all of the marks that at least a grade 7 is going to achieve. Next one is nurses. Imagine this is the question. It isn't all about the doctors. Support staff and nurses deserve much better pay and working conditions in recognition of the vital work they do in saving lives day after day. Write a letter to Jeremy Hunt MP, Secretary of State for Health, in which you explain your views. So this time it's a letter. So your address would be here, and then obviously, dear Jeremy Hunt. So this is what I've done. A country ruined, a country on its knees. Nurses, the very spine of our beloved nation, are exiting the profession in their masses, yet the government sits idly by watching the collapse of the treasured NHS. In a recent survey conducted by the NHS, over 75% of nurses claim that they feel devalued by the government. Sandra Bellingham, a nurse with over 30 years' experience, went on to say, "We are tired of the strain placed on nurses and the exhausting hours we work. These long hours have negative consequences, with a recent rise in stress-related absence, which in turn means that hospitals are often understaffed." So again, what have we done? Simple, a country ruined. With your exaggeration, a country on its knees, your personification. Single word, nurses. Your personification at the spine of our nation, which I would make an extended metaphor when I mentioned it later on. Your semicolon. The collapse of the NHS. Emotive language treasured. Recent survey with a statistic. Okay. Emotive language and devalued. A comment from a nurse of 30 years experience. Your emotive language, negative consequences, stress-related absence. So you can see what's done then. It will be set out right with the address there. Your next one is school uniform. And I think this is the last one I've got. So please stay with me because this is a favoured topic from the exam boards. So imagine that you are writing a letter, I don't know, about school uniform, whether or not you agree with it. And I've done this. Dear Mr. Priestley, so head teacher, freedom, creativity, expression. There's your triple. Words associated with individualism and identity. There's your alliteration. These luxuries have been stripped away from young people and we are now tortured with the ominous colour black. Okay? Metaphor. Yes, black. An adjective synonymous with funerals and, dare I say it, death. There is your colon for emphasis. Our education and teen years decorated in this most depressing colour, emotive language, depressing. If we were to research the word uniform in the thesaurus, then we would come across synonyms such as unchanging or identical. But we exist in 2018 and times are changing. Revolution is not only political but ethical when basic human rights are denied. So quite a lot there, guys, quite a few examples and things like that for you with quick wins. I've added this one on the end. It's very, very emotive. So if it touches a nerve, then naturally turn the video off. But this was a question that was written as well. Everyone is different and it is important to encourage people to feel comfortable in being themselves. We should aim to create a society in which differences are not only accepted but embraced. So this was writing an article for your school newspaper to explain your point of view, and I have started mine very, very emotively indeed. So if this does touch a nerve, please, as I say, turn off the video, and apologies if it does. But for this one, I've put unfortunately, and as you are aware, Karen Spiel recently took her own life. This was and remains a tragedy. More prevalently, the suicide note left blamed her peers, of which I am a part. Perhaps it is time that we, as Year 11, took a long, painful look in the mirror. What will we see? Bullies, prejudice, but never victims. The scars we cause are often invisible but cut deep. I stand here and plead for change. Imagine a world where diversity is the only thing we know. Open your hearts, open your minds. Okay, so you have got some quick wins back through the PowerPoint on what you can do in terms of manipulating the examiner. You've got my example paragraphs on some topics that are quite popular at GCSE. I hope this has helped. I do think it's one of my better videos actually. So if you are struggling on AQA Paper 2 English Language, question 5, please share this with your friends. Apologies in advance for my technology. And please check my YouTube channel for everything else. It's Stacey Ray, and a massive good luck in your English language exam.